Pick Up the Pace is a rugby union podcast hosted by All Black super fan and Anadu Ryle, two passionate rugby fanatics from Wainuiomata, New Zealand, who go deep into everything rugby without taking themselves too seriously.
Hey, what's up, team? You're with your man, All Black Superfan, episode number 9, and my man next to me.
Anadu Ryle, good to be back yet again for another episode of Pick Up the Pace.
Yeah, pick it up.
And we're here in the mighty Wainuiomata on Hood Street at the home of Alice Soper. Alice, welcome.
Kia ora.
Kia ora, kia ora.
So we've got Alice Soper here, and I thought I'd just read out her credentials for everyone listening. Wellington Secondary School Girls, 2002 to 2005 for rugby. Wellington Sevens squad, 2002 to 2003 at the age of 13. And then 2012-2013 season, she started off playing for Johnsonville, then moved to Wainuiomata for her club rugby. She then played 26 games for the Wellington Pride team from 2016 and 2019. Then she moved over to the UK and played in the Tyrrell's Premiership 15s, which is the English Premier League, and played for Richmond for a couple of years. While she was over there, she played for the Jill Burns County Championship, which is similar to the Farah Palmer Comp here in New Zealand, and captain on her debut. She's also played at Twickenham, the home of rugby in England.
Whoa.
And other than that, she's done a bit of coaching secondary schools, Nainai College Hutt Valley Invitational, and she was a resource coach for the England Centre of Excellence in 2018, the Chesia women's team during their European Trophy campaign. And on top of that, she has shared the field with those that have worn the national jersey for England, Ireland, Wales, Scotland, France, Sweden, Chesia, Hungary, USA, Canada, New Zealand, Samoa, Fiji, Australia, and the Bahamas. So she could easily assemble a World 15 from all of her teammates. Alice, welcome to the show. What a CV. It's a privilege to be interviewing you today.
Sure.
So I thought we'd just kick off. Tell us a little bit about who were your rugby heroes that you looked up to early in your career.
Sure. So obviously, women's rugby wasn't something that you could see on TV or really around the place when I was small. So unfortunately, when I was little, a lot of those heroes were probably boys. So John Kerwin, I started on the wing, played my first 10 seasons on the wing. So John Kerwin was my number one. He's I got his mug over there. On a mug, still drink out of that on a game day. John Kerwin, then of course being a Hurricanes fan, it's got to be Christian Cullen, John Alomu, all the outside backs, eh? But then, when I first did get to watch women's rugby, which was actually when I first started playing, which would have been I started playing around 2002, and then in 2003, the Black Ferns actually played a couple of games against the World 15, and that was televised, and so I remember watching... she was Hannah Myers at the time. I think she's Hannah Porter now. But I still remember she had to finish the game, had to do a conversion from right on the 22, and it was a windy day, and it came off the tee twice, so she just picked it up and drop kicked it, and I was just like, that's the most badass thing I've ever seen. And she was a little white girl like me, so I was like, yes, we can do it. So yeah, Hannah Myers when I was small, for sure.
That's awesome. What an impressive resume. Very, very impressive. So, tell us a little bit about your early playing experiences and memories when you first started playing the game for school and club rugby.
So I obviously always, growing up in New Zealand, rugby's the number one, but where I grew up in Wellington, so I grew up in Kelburn, there wasn't really club rugby around there. I guess Wests probably would have been my closest club, but there was no girls rugby at that time, and so it wasn't something that I went into. So I played football first and played that quite seriously as Feds was what they called it. So it's like Hurricanes, I guess, level of football.
Oh, wow.
So did that first, and then it was when I was at intermediate age, we had a teacher at school, so we used to play at lunchtimes on the concrete because we didn't have any grass at my primary. So we used to just play, and the teachers weren't very happy with that, and so we'd just have to exaggerate and go touch when they'd come past, and then full tackle when they'd go away. But when I was 11, we had a teacher, Mr. Webb, and he was mean because he used to take us across the field at lunchtime. Instead of telling us to stop like everyone else, he'd take us down the road to this little field, and we got to play on the grass there. And that was the first time that I got to play, and I just remember because I was fast when I was young, so it was just being able to just tuck a ball and just pin your ears. I was so mean and just burning all those boys off. I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. So when I then went to Onslow College, when I started there, and there was a notice in the school notices asking about schoolgirls rugby. And so Marama Tora, she's my sports coordinator at the time. I was very blessed to have her there. And so she likes to tell the story about how she put this notice in, and I was the only one that turned up. And she was like, the fuck, got the smallest white girl. This is the only one I've got. And she was like, oh, all right, mate, we'll have another meeting in a week and we'll see what happens. And so I went on the recruitment drive, and I came back, and next week I had 10 girls. And she was like, oh, okay, we'll see what we do. So we actually ended up combining. She was awesome because she worked with us on that. So for my first couple of years, we had girls that came from Newlands College and then Onslow College. And there was one random girl, Tasia, who used to come down from Tawa College. And so us three high schools together, it would normally be rivals in sports, teamed up and would field a team together. So basically the backline was from Onslow and the forward pack was from Newlands. But yeah, it was me. We used to play on a Monday afternoon, and Andy, the groundskeeper, he'd let us play on the number 1 field. And I still remember the boys would be like waiting to catch the bus. And I scored so many tries in that first season. I had no idea what I was doing. I would run like 400 meters. But I just remember getting all those boys up on the field, they'd be like, oh, who's this little white girl? Run as fast as you can. I ruined it for all the other white girls in the grade because nobody would mark me. No one would mark me because they saw me. I was I don't know, 60 kgs, if that, at that time. So it's tiny, would get smashed, but they just have to catch me first. So, and then Marama, because she was actually a Wellington Pride player, and she played at Johnsonville. She was a stalwart for the Johnsonville club. Many, many games. She should have had a blazer 100 times over, that lady. She pulled me in there to play sevens at the end of the year. So she was saying, hey, mate, come have a proper go. And there was no rules against it at that time. There are now. You need to have dispensation if you're a young player playing in women's grade, but at that time, nobody cared. Yeah. So I was 13 and rocked up and played a tournament for Jayville. And then off the back of that, got picked for Wellington Sevens. Just crazy. Had played 8 games of rugby in my life, had no idea what was going on, didn't know what a cut line was, didn't know anything, but that was a crazy thing. And I remember being so scared of those big girls, but then got to go and pick with a group of girls that got to go and train with the Pride ladies, but we were just training with them at that time, just learning. But the week before, I was at a football camp because I was still playing football seriously then. And I was running over to, at lunchtime, and jumped over the back of a booth and was running too quick for food. Put my ankle out of place, and so I couldn't train with them, just had to watch.
Oh, no.
I know, gutted. But yes, that was when I was young anyway.
So you're still young.
Yeah,
well, that's 13 years old. Playing, you must have been pretty fit.
I mean, are you? I think at 13, it's a different whole level. Are you even fit, or are you just you're not even a person yet? But the funny thing about that was when I was 14, I was playing a different sevens tournament. 2 things happened that day. One, my team decided we had a big urn of water, and they decided it would be a good idea to trade that with the refs for a bunch of beer. I was like, oh, shot, girls. I'm real thirsty. I can't drink this. I'm 14 years old. And then meantime, they're all giving me shit because there was a new player on the scene that was carving that day. She was 11 years old. Wow. That was Marianne Collins, who's played absolute legend.
11 years old.
11 years old. Absolute legend of the Wellington club scene. Has played for Samoa in a World Cup and has also played New Zealand for league. And she's an absolute beast, but 11 years old. They're like, girl, you're past it. You're past it at 14 to be on this field. But they would not let us anywhere near that now. No way.
So tell us about after you left school and you played for Johnsonville and then you moved over to Wainuiomata. You want to talk through women's rugby at that stage on the club scene here in Wellington?
Yeah, so there was a couple of different things that were going on. Obviously I talked to you about sevens was my intro into club. So what happened in 2005 is the NZR cut sevens for women, so there was no competition, and that sucked, man, because that was my game. I played 15s, but sevens was my passion, and so the really depressing thing was when they brought it back in 2012. There was a whole bunch of girls that had become ineligible because they'd gone and played for other countries in the interim. So there were a number of players that had been Wellington players, would have been New Zealand players, but ended up playing for Samoa, so then were ineligible to play for us, and that was pretty guttering when they were trying to pull girls in from other codes, but they'd turned a whole bunch of players off and lost them in that way. So, I've seen highs and lows of kind of club scene. Marama, who I talked about before, she was actually was a RDO for the Women's Rugby Development Officer for Wellington for a time, and under her guidance, I think we got all the way up to about 12 teams in the comp, and that was like at its peak. But unfortunately then Wellington Rugby considered that women's rugby was developed, and so kind of disestablished the role, and then we'd seen a decline on the back of that. Look, it was an interesting time. So we moved clubs after I left school, so it would have been 2010, I think, when we moved to Wainui. So at that time, Piriwepu and Ken Laban had been coaching us at Javel we were really lucky for a couple of seasons there. We did everything we could not to win a championship.
Right, the two of them were
yeah, two of them together. Uncle would have some pretty choice words. Yeah, I don't know how many I can say. But basically would tell you... okay, so his main line to us before game was, I can rip their faces off and shove it up their ass. Or you need to go to, aisle 10 and get a can, mitre 10, aisle 10, get a can of Harden Up. And what was the other one? Oh, one more for smiling. So I've never been fitter, man, under him. It'd be like on the line, and one more for smiling, we'd have to go again. But yeah, we packed in at Javel because they were sexist pricks, to be honest. Packed it in there and ended up coming over to Wainui. Because of that tie over. But it was an interesting thing there, like essentially Ken and Power had come over because, again, so much of women's rugby is about making those relationships and working together to make games happen. So the reason why there was a partnership between Wainui and Javel, like people think that's unusual, but actually what was happening behind the scenes there was that there was an agreement that if these Wainui players would come over and play with us, they were all leagueies, and so we would come and help them play league on a Sunday. So women's, you play union on a Saturday, league on a Sunday. So that's what we did, and the idea was that we'd win a championship in both. Right. We never managed it in union, but we did in league. So putting that group of players together, managed to knock that over.
Was Piriwepu an All Black at that point?
Yeah, he was. Wow. And this is like, full credit to Powell, like, I think about this like in the age now, and I think about, people often talk about Adi Savia and the impact that he had on St Mary's with that Sevens program. And he did. He had a massive impact in terms of that is now one of the most high-performing colleges for schoolgirls. But Powell was doing it before then. He did it years before then, and nobody ever knew about it, and he was really low-key about it. He would just turn up, and he pulled in so many favours. Like I remember Namia Tialata, we used to come out all the time and work with our front row. We had Andrew Hoare there one time, Jason Eden, like a bunch of his Canes bros he would pull out and like not only like just what a rev that would do, and if you look at that team that they invested in, like that women's team now, there are two international coaches that have come out of that. So you've got Leslie McKenzie, who's with the Japanese women's team. You've got Moana Virtue, who's the assistant coach of the Wallaroos. You've also got a bunch of internationals that played in that side as well, both Black Ferns, Sevens, 15s, but also I think Australia, because I think Nella was there, Juliana Newman, who now plays for the Warriors and for the Kiwi Ferns. So many players that just took that little bit of investment from those men and just grew off the back of it, and just what a massive impact that made at that time. I definitely didn't appreciate it at the time, but like looking back on it, like what a huge impact that had.
Massive support, massive. So you started in Wainui Mara 2010, and something special happened in 2014. You got selected for the Wellington Pride. So do you remember like when you got the phone call, or how did it happen? Like how did it go down?
Yeah, so I'd been trialling for the team for about 3 years, and there was a change in coaches, so I think that helped. Just to be completely honest. So prior to that, Damien Rapera was the Pride coach. He didn't like me much. He was one of our secondary school coaches. I remember having an argument with him, which is very off-brand for me. At our tournament once, because he told me that the reason why people didn't take women's sports seriously is because we didn't specialise. And I just thought that was absolute nonsense, because like I said, I came from football, and there were so many transferable skills that I got from that. And so I remember we were having breakfast, and he was just having this nonsense yarn. And so I was like, nah, man, you're wrong. And then we went out that day, and we tackled, like someone got tackled in the 22 and the ball spilled on the ground, and they chipped it through, and they chipped it the whole way down the field, and then scored, and then turned around and just pointed at him.
Your coach?
Yeah. I was like, proving the point. But so I don't think he liked me very much, so I didn't make that team. Also, I was playing sevens at that time, and they kept asking me, are you going to specialise, like what you want to do? I just wanted to play for Wellington. I didn't care if it was 15s or 7s. So I just wanted to play. So you can see, like in that playing history, I was playing for sevens the year before, and then finally got the call up in 14. Now actually converted me. So JT was our coach at that time. But I was a 6, so I was a blindside, and but Shorty Rowett, who had been our hooker for a long time for Wellington, she moved away, and so there was a vacancy there, and so they thought they should convert me position-wise, and so they just picked me at 2.
Right, okay.
I'd never played, but they decided that was a good idea.
So that was the moment where you switched to hooker, from wing to hooker.
No, so from wing, so when I started at Wainui, I moved to the 4-pack, so was a wing all during my high school and JVL times, got to Wainui, broke the news to people, hey guys, I think I want to be a flanker, and they were like, oh, you reckon? I was like, yeah, so played 6 for 4 years, and then, picked for Wellington and playing it too.
Nice.
Wow.
So what about your first game for Wellington? Where did that take place?
Yeah, so it was hard. I was having to ask a mate before, because it was, like, to be honest with you, that first season, having been picked in transferred positions, it was pretty traumatic. So I kind of have blocked out a lot of those memories because they weren't the best. I was one of 3 hookers, so there was Foimei Taumoli, who's currently the women's RDO. Thank goodness she was there learning with me at the same time, and then Linga, who actually passed away in 2017, who was very kind to us and spent a lot of time coaching us because nobody else would, and bringing us up there. But yeah, so I would have come probably, like, I'm thinking about it, it was against Otago, I remember that, and it was at Petone Rec, and I was living in Petone at the time. So I was like, sweet, I'll just like be relaxed in the morning and I'll bike down. And I bike down, apparently I got the timings wrong, so I was late, I was already in trouble. And then look at the, little team sheet. I was like, I'll keep this, my first game, They put my name down as Soper. I was like, I came straight to the memory box. But yeah, I reckon I must have come off bench probably for Linga, and then I would have been, we lost that game. We didn't have a good season. That was a garbage season, but the end of that season was a resurgence for Wellington Women's Rugby. So that was when Charles had taken over the Sevens girls, and they had a mean as season off the back of that. I think they ended up like maybe finalists, but they won the plate or something. But it was big for us, and the that central backline, that's kind of where a group of them came together, and also a few of our loose forwards. And then that kind of was a core of players that then came into the 2015 campaign. And that's really, I guess, where I think about my first season being, because that first season was like, so much of it was like the learning and the like having to learn so publicly, which was really hard. Like, I remember my first start was against Auckland on Eden Park on TV, just like the pressure that was, like packing down against Captain Fee, who like the Player of the Year tournament is now named after, and I'm packing down. She looks at me, she knows I have no idea what I'm doing, and like just pins my forehead on my knee for the rest of the game. Like, as the muscle memory of that actually took me a few years to like undo. How not to coach players, a lot of things that I learnt in that season. But the 2015 is where I kind of think of my first season of really being.
Yeah. Were there many other players at the time who started off in a position like that and then moved into a completely different one just because they were short of players in that position, or?
Look, I think it's pretty unusual, and that's what I was like, because I was talking to, like I said, I had to ask a couple of players questions because I was trying to remember like when my first things were, and I was talking to Foimei, and I was like, because she was saying that she's really like whakama about the fact that she played for Wellington, because her sisters currently are our props, Jan and Bar, and she doesn't like to tell people that she played for Pride, and I'm like, bro, you got to be proud of that, because so few people would have the mental toughness that it took to be chucked into a position you have no idea about, playing against the best players in the country at that position, and to keep turning up every week. And it was sisters looking after sisters. So like we were in a unique position there. There's been like little movements around apart from that. I see it other countries internationally though. When I was over in the UK, my mate Sarah Mimner, who played hooker for Ireland, she had a similar experience, having been moved from flank to 2 with not a lot of support, and so she was a really big support for me in actually developing my game when I was over there, because she knew exactly what it felt like, and she knew all the words I was saying to myself in my head, and so helped me kind of deprogram a lot of that. But in terms of like locally, I can't think of it. Sarah Byrne is another good example internationally. So she is the prop currently for England. Everybody froths over her, puts her, nominates her for Player of the Year. She's a fantastic ball player, but she can't scrum. And I don't think she's getting that wraparound support to be able to do that. And that's just like, that kills a player if you don't have all those tools in your toolbox, and particularly if you're like a prop or front row. That's a technical position. You need somebody to be, it's dangerous, if nothing else, just dangerous. But like I think actually both of England's starting props at the moment are both position converts. Sarah Byrne was a 13 before they made her a prop. So that's a big shift. And there's nothing wrong with like player profiling, and look, I like playing number 2 now. But I think you have to do it with the resources, right? Yeah, like you've got to understand the learning that goes on there, and maybe help people not fail so publicly, because not a lot of players will come back from that, you know.
That's right.
Yeah, either sink or swim, eh? But you've grown into it.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. I think, to be honest with you, that was a lot of my motivation to go and play overseas, because I had a real like mental block around it, because I was worried that I was only making Wellington teams because I've been around. Like I was there long enough, part of the furniture, so they're like, oh, just put her in type of thing. And particularly like I had a real like a thing around like I wasn't a real hooker. Because everybody knew that I got put in there and didn't know what I was doing. And like so much of, if you're going to do that position properly, you have to take charge of set piece. Like you are the boss of the set piece. And so if you have that like, you know, hesitance in you, you can't actually do your job properly. And so I had a lot of that in the games I was playing. And so when I went to the UK, like I didn't tell anyone that. I just turned up and was like, yeah, I'm a hooker, right? And just see what happens. And
well, that could have been a good thing though, eh?
Yeah.
They have no like perception of what you were beforehand.
The blank slate, so I don't come with all that story, right? So I get to be in charge of what the story is. So I just got to say, yeah, I'm a hooker, and people believed that, even though then the first season they played me at prop. So everyone loves changing my position, but that's because Gaël Mignon, who was a like World Cup captain for France, was in the team at 2, and I was like, this jersey's yours.
So you moved to the UK in late 2017.
Yeah.
And you played for Richmond.
Yeah.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about your experiences playing over there and the differences, I suppose, to New Zealand? Yeah.
So that was in the Tyrrell's Premiership. So that was a new thing that had just been set up by the England RFU, and so it's essentially like a Super Rugby competition for women. So it's mirroring the men's Premiership. So we're Richmond. Well, I was playing for Richmond, obviously, but like we'd play against Saracens, Harlequins, Bristol Bears, and so all over England. No, we didn't get paid. People always ask that. I understand there's more and more kind of like non-payment payments going on now. So like travel fees and things like that. But I think actually next season there might even be match day type stuff. So yeah, played the first 2 seasons of that inaugural tournament. It was a really cool thing to have a commitment to like a women's rugby at that level. So basically all the Six Nation girls, I mean, it was a competition for England, but you're so close to Wales, Scotland, Ireland. Most of those internationals are also coming and playing. And like I said, French players too, because Gaël was there. And so playing against these women, and we would take it, so the season would run October through April, so a long season. We get to play like a lot of teams, you know. We'd play everybody twice, I think, and then you'd have a little break in like, February, March, I can't remember, where the girls would be going and playing Six Nations matches, so everyone was on hiatus for that time. All teams had to have 2 teams, so you'd have development team as well. So that was a unique thing from my experience. I'd never been in a club that had more than 1 women's team. And what that meant in terms of a dynamic as well, like you've not just got, you know, hopefully 10 girls turning up at training. Yeah. Like if you're lucky, you know, and got a real committed team, you have 20. Like now you're talking 40 girls at training. So just the level of things you can do is completely different. Although, do I think that that was utilised in the best ways? No, I don't. But I think baseline English rugby is all about like strength and conditioning is just, it's taken as read. Like the commitment from those girls, that fitness is a completely different attitude. And whereas here we're lazy, man. Like a lot of players get a long way just from getting out on the roads and doing some running, and there's a lot of girls that need to do that more and still end up playing for provinces, but really shouldn't be because they're not making fitness standards. So that's a big thing that the English have over us, but what they're lacking is like they're so prescriptive and everything's so cerebral the way they play rugby, and a lot of that is because there's a totally different setup in terms of most girls. So in New Zealand, most girls come into rugby. Some start at school, like juniors, like playing club and that. But actually, the most part it comes through at high school. Like that's when your first opportunity to play comes. Whereas in England, they're a whole 5 years later. So most of them it's at university. So that's a couple of things. That's really late to be learning a game, but also so it makes it less instinctive because it's something you've had to really like learn. But also like there's a class element of that. So a lot of the players that I was playing with were scientists and engineers and like real smart guys. Like and. I went from a situation where, you know, I went to university and, you know, had pretty professional jobs and stuff. And so in rugby circles here, like that's, you know, I'm one of the smart guys to being one of the dumb ones over there because, like, I'm working for a charity and, like, as a community worker and I'm there with, people who went to Oxford and Cambridge and that. And so a very different attitude. And that was also a lot of how they kind of seem to express themselves on the field. Like, it was really much like preparing for a test and then showing them what you've learnt instead of kind of freely expressing and playing what's in front of you. So I tend to have, like, I had a better kind of understanding a lot of the time working with Irish girls and Welsh girls because they kind of like Ireland and Wales, like rugby is more an innate part of their culture in the same way that it is in New Zealand, and so they kind of had that. Just, you know, I remember me and Jade once having an argument with a coach about what you should do. So he'd set up a scenario where we were on our we were 5 meters out from our line. There's he's saying there's 2 minutes left to go. Like, what do you do? What do you do? And me and Jay were just keep the ball tight, hold on to it. We were running a scenario because we were supposed to be playing Wasps that weekend. Now, Wasps, their back three play for England. They're the best back three. Their wingers are fucking slick, man. So Jade and I are looking at that scenario absolutely keep it tight. Trust our forwards. And this was wrong, apparently. We're supposed to kick it downfield and try and put pressure there. It's the dumbest thing you can do is kick it to Nolly in space. She'd just say, happy birthday, like she has every other time we've played them.
And give it to the back three.
Hard. So it's just tries all day. Yeah, what are you doing, man?
Ball retention.
Right? So that type of thing. And I remember having the argument and me and Jay were right in there, and then nobody agreed with us, and we were just looking at each other what is this? What is this rugby? And having, they would teach us these game plans and that, and there'd be 5 phases long, and I would be what happens after the second phase if the hole's in front of me though? No, you got to play the pattern. And I was but if the hole's in front of me, I'm gone.
Stick to the script,
bro. I don't care. I see a hole, I'm hitting it. But the whole idea of creating a plan or whatever is to create space. So if we've done it after first phase, happy days, job's done. Why do you need to play it out? So that was an attitude I found quite hard, and that was the thing I could never understand. Playing over there too, I had a massive advantage being an unknown and also not knowing who anyone was, because that's one of the beautiful things about the terrible coverage of women's rugby is I didn't know who the English players were. I didn't know this or that. And so I would play 80 minutes and then people would tell me after, oh, that was blah, blah, who played 50 caps for this, and this was somebody who done this and this. And I was oh, was it? I don't know who she is. I don't care. So had no fear because had no knowledge, But likewise, I never understood the girls over there. To me, you could beat any teams because none of them were that flash. They were just playing pattern. So you just run at them and you break their pattern apart. It was so obvious because everyone's learning the same thing and running the same thing. So
I suppose there's an advantage coming from New Zealand. You can just play your natural game, where they're a bit more, strategic to their script and just let it go.
Yeah. I think it's and I think also Wellington Rugby is definitely like that too. I think maybe if I was from Canterbury, I would have less of a, more drills based, focus. But I think if you're from Wellington or Auckland, on our worst day, that's chaos. But on our best day, that's just beautiful, it's just it's so expressive. But it's something you can't really coach. And that's I think, probably also part of the problem, right? Is how do you teach girls that have played for a couple of years how to do that, how to have the confidence to do that? I don't know. They haven't figured it out yet, so we'll keep winning World Cups probably.
So you must have learnt a lot from these international players that you played alongside.
Yeah, definitely. So like I said, having the opportunity to play with Gael, so she was hilarious. She learnt English the season that I was there, and she would take our scrum sessions, but would only know a handful of words. So she would talk the whole time about you've got to balance on your toes and line up your adversaire and all of this type of nonsense. But I remember one game, because she'd been playing Six Nations, she hurt her shoulder, and so I got the 2 jersey off her for that game. So she was running waters, and I'd asked her before the game, just, being respectful, I said to her, what do you reckon about this pack? Like, what are we going to do scrum time, da? She says, oh, Alice, I don't think it's possible. We just hold. I said, okay, cool, we'll just hold. So we do first scrum, and I looked at them, I was like, nah. Because this was the thing. Every weekend I would turn up and they're like, Alice, the 4-pack this week is really big. I was like, you guys don't know what big is, okay? Firstly, you think I'm big, and hello. Compared to New Zealand, like, the size is just so different. So we turned up those smallish pack, and so we packed down first scrum. I didn't fully go her, but I went her a little bit, and we got a bit of a nudge, and then first water break, Gail runs on, she's like, Alice, it's possible. I was like, this is the greatest compliment I could get from her, to say it's possible. But yeah, so she was like, I've never met anyone more competitive in my life, and that's so quintessentially French. Like, French players, French people are so competitive, but in a way that was purely about herself. Like, she was so competitive, she didn't even see you as a competitor. She was only worried about her and what she was doing. And so, like, the standards that she had for herself were massive, and so seeing that was like a really inspiring thing to train alongside. And then, like I said, Sarah Mimno, like, that was a big thing for me, I think, just in terms of, like I said, undoing some of that muscle memory, that negative stuff in my head. Like, she was a big help for me on that, and just having someone who'd gone through a really similar experience, and to be able to also have the technical skills to be able to watch what I was doing and give me a couple of tweaks to unlock a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So what about in New Zealand? There's been a lot of talk in the last couple of years about women's rugby not getting the recognition, not getting the coverage. State of affairs, New Zealand women's rugby.
It's a tricky one, man, because I feel like it's kind of bubbling away right now, and it's not happening in isolation though, right? Like, so I'm kind of getting to the feeling where it's like, at the moment, women's rugby is finally getting to the cupboard and getting to open it. But the state of men's rugby, it's like we're about to open it and realise that the cupboard's empty, because the boys emptied it out fucking ages ago. And there's an element of that fucking sucks, just in terms of the timing. Like, there are things that have been happening that are really cool. Like, the biggest winner out of Spark getting the rights for the World Cup last year was the fact that all of our, like, so many of our games got televised. So prior to that, I played 3 seasons for Pride. I think I'd had 6 games total on TV, and last year we had 6 games on TV. So in one season, went from boom to boom. And what that means is, not only when we're playing on Sky, that means we have to play on the top fields too. So that meant suddenly, after playing, like, I think, again, 2 games Westpac tops. I played 2 games last year, played 2 games on Eden Park last year. I think there was only 1 match actually that we played that wasn't on one of the main official pitches, which was, Porirua Park. So it's like, when it's televised, that ups it, there's eyes on it, and so there's a level of, like, standard of kind of facilities and stuff that we get, which is cool. So that was a massive lift. I think we've got issues though, both in terms of pathways in and pathways out, and it's not dissimilar to what's going on with men. It's a situation of but we've got an issue because our playing base is much smaller, and like I said, we only have like 1 women's team per club. It's even more important for us to be building that development for young talent to come through, because if it doesn't, your club dies, and you fall over. So it becomes so important to, like, foster your own, but also be fostering across the city and also your opposition. Because if your team, like, if your club down the road falls over, well, that's 1 more team that you don't get to play. That's 1 more game that you don't get to play this season. Like, that's not beneficial for anyone. So that's like pathways in, but the pathways out are also a big part of that, because we're losing too much talent every year who are so burnt out with dealing with the same old boys every year while they're playing, that they don't want to stick around and manage and coach. And also, nobody's telling them that they're worthwhile that either. How many times you look at right now in the FPC, all of the head coaches are men. Women's rugby has been recognised, and I'll say that word, recognised, by men in this country now for 30 years. So it's been existed a lot longer than that, since the 1800s, but it has been recognised by men for 30 years, and you're telling me in 30 years we haven't been able to develop a women's coach that can take one of our FPC teams? Anna Richards right now is on the support staff for Auckland Rugby. Who the heck is more qualified than her to take a team? And Amy Sartorius, who is played a million bloody games for Wellington, we didn't want to value her here. She's gone down to Otago Spirit. She helped them come up into the Premiership at the end of last season. So she's, she's been the assistant coach down there as well. Massive resource in terms of her knowledge. And there's so many more I could just name.
So what do you think? Where are these roadblocks happening though? Can you?
It's like a whole range of things, man. It's like there's a couple of things happening all at once, and so it's difficult to unpick it. It's gendered and it's cultured, and at the same time. So women are less likely to back themselves and to see their own talent. Like I'm sitting here, even when you guys are reading out my CV and saying, oh, that's mean and stuff. I never feel like it is because I'm like, I never played for New Zealand, so I always feel like, oh, fuck, who would want to talk to me or listen to what I have to say because I've never played in the top tier, and so I don't think of my knowledge as being as good. So you've got that with an agendered thing, but then you've also got another layer which is cultural too. Like our sport is mainly brown. Like it's mainly Māori Pacifica women that are playing. These are women that do not have a whole heap of time. They're already, that's why most of the time at our training we've got more kids at our trainings than other players, because these people are mums. They're already doing all the hard yards in our community, so we're asking them to do another thing that's really tough, but also you're asking them to do another thing in a space where traditionally that shouldn't be a woman's role, and so you're asking them to go against their uncles, that's, or their dads, that's a hard thing as well, so you have to have that cultural understanding. That's not to say it can't be done, but just how important then those role models become. And I think back on that, my story is unique in that my first coach was a woman. But what a massive impact that had on me in terms of my base skills that she taught and was able to impart on me. And actually opening the doors for saying, schoolgirls is a bit of, you're not going to learn much here, so come and do this. And I don't know if a male coach would have done that for me at that time. And so, it's that whole thing, because she had that growth mindset because she knew that we needed that within our sport. And so I see that, with a lot of our players, and I just think it's like, talk to us, man. Like how many of us, I'm 31 now. There's a group of players that are floating around Wellington club scene who are like the senior players at all the clubs. These are girls I played Wellington secondary schools with. We've been around in the scene now for 1 million years. How many of those girls have got coaching certs? I don't think any of us. How many have been talked to about managing or about next steps or about what they are going to be doing, or starting to talk to them about how they want to, the club's approaching them? And that's the roadblock, is because most of the time the club doesn't value the women's contribution. So the quicker these women are out, the happier they are about it. So they don't want to keep pulling in, and particularly the ones that are going to be strong for the game in terms of the squeaky wheels, they're happy to see us go. So they don't necessarily want to be shoulder tapping that woman and saying, do you want to put more in? They want to keep us out, because then they're going to have to change things.
And there's nothing stopping a woman from coaching a men's side either.
No, and players have done it. So Serena Curtis, so she was one of the first that I, one of my rugby mums, she played for New Zealand in Union League. Pretty sure she was a judo and a basketball rep as well. You might know her brother though, because nobody ever knows her. You might know her brother Ambrose, who played for New Zealand Sevens. But Serena is a hell of a coach, and she has been for a long time. She coached the Pōneke Colts. I think now she coaches the Auries Colts. And she works with those young men because she says a lot of that is not actually about teaching them rugby, it's about teaching them to be good men at that age. But she's a fantastic thing, and this is the thing that frustrates me right now is look, no disrespect to our Pride coaches, because I'm pretty sure that stuff is voluntary, or if they do get paid, it's peanuts, But when you're talking about, gateways in, so pathways in, resource coaching, what's the thing you're really good at? Come and teach us how to do that. Right now, we need some more development in our Type 5. Serena played prop for New Zealand. Why are they not approaching her and getting her to come down and take a couple of sessions with us at Pride? Why have we got another old boy, your old mate? And I can tell you why. It's because it's your old mate. You're not thinking about who your players and coaches are. There are so many women that are floating around right now that could be teaching us. And if they can't do it full-time, resource coaching, woman to woman communicating, so much more that they can teach us.
Yeah, so you're very passionate about all of this, right? And a lot of people say sport and politics should never mix.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, participation in the sport is inherently political. Because so many, I love rugby, but rugby hasn't always loved me. And a lot of the times I've been told not to do it, or to go away, or to be quiet. And a lot of that is because I'm talking about the lack of equity within our sport. And so, to say that, they shouldn't be, it's there is a political statement, the reality is that rugby in New Zealand holds a particularly special place for men as part of their identity. And so it's really challenging for a lot of New Zealand men to understand that actually women can play the sport too, because sport isn't gendered. But they have a hard time letting go of that, because part of who their identity and their like what it is to be a man is to play a hard game like that. And so, like I say, us existing and saying, hold on a second, we can do it as well, and should be respected for doing it and should get the same opportunities, and we should know who people are. That's, like I say, inherently political.
Wow. So you've been involved in a few exciting rugby projects since returning to New Zealand. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so like I keep on waiting for other people to do stuff and they're not. There's the long and short of that. So like I said, over in the UK, new competition that popped up, no coverage for it. And so watching kind of what happened there in terms of, there were a couple of people who were like, nobody's covering this and it's happening every weekend and we need to start doing it. Lucy Lomax was one of those people who had been doing she was like a reporter and been doing some journalist, and she was like, we need to sort this out. And so she started running some things and just talking about it and getting out there and doing interviews and making it happen. And watching her do that, I was like, I'm still waiting for people to do that here. Like I think back, so 2014. In 2014, I set up our Facebook page. We didn't have one before that. Nobody knew about the Pride page. It's now, you're welcome. They kicked me off the administrator. You're welcome, Wellington Rugby.
Wow.
They took that, my 2,000 followers. I think we have the highest followership of any union in the country, but you're welcome, Wellington Rugby. Anyway, like things like that. So had seen that, like, people want to know what's going on. We're so thirsty for our stories, man. We've been waiting for people to tell them, and so a lot of it is like about that. I've made the commitment to myself that while I was away and saw people doing it, and it wasn't that hard. But also while I was away, one of my rugby aunties passed, and she was too young. She's in her 40s. That's Tia Pasi, and that's who our championship trophy now has been renamed after. But she played for New Zealand, and we don't know her whole story. She played in the club scene for a long time. She was a real character, and like all of that like is gone because our record keeping is so bad. Nobody keeps the receipts, and so it's entirely oral history. And so you've got to start documenting it now. And for a lot of my mates, like, I'm their records. Like, they'll ask me, oh, was I in this team when in that year? And I was like, yeah, you were there and this happened. And so I'm like, okay, if someone's going to start telling those stories, it's got to be me.
That's critical, right? Keeping those documents, keeping that history, keeping those records.
Yeah.
If you don't have it, what do you have?
Because look at the men's game, right? You've got books, you've got endless.
You've got Wikipedia.
Resources.
Yeah. Everyone knows how many caps the All Blacks have done.
I know. So classic. Okay, so 2015, right? When I made the team that year, I was at a fundraiser where Keith Quinn was speaking at the time. And he was in the middle of a speech and my phone rang and I had to go out while it was ringing, and it was a bit rude or whatever. But afterwards I told him, look, what that call was. And he said to me, hey, Soper, right? He's like, oh, I know your great uncle someone on his tombstone. It says the 3 Fs, football, family and farming. And I'm like, so you know this about my great grandfather and you don't know who the fuck I am? Like, come on, mate. Like, then of course you don't, because there's no records in anything. If you look up my almanac at the moment, I think it says I started playing in 2014. I'd played 12 years before that. But you wouldn't know. And the argument that I had, it took 5 years for Wainui to finally give us our blazers. It took 5 years because they didn't have any frickin' record. And they made the girls, and I actually refused an appointed principal because I'd already 5 years earlier got the Wellington Rugby Union to verify the number of games I had played. But they made the girls last year turn up at the club room and go through old receipts.
But you can bet your bottom dollar if a male, 100th game, Centurion...
They would have been tracking that. They would have been tracking that, and they would have told him, and we had to turn around and tell them. And that's just us who like tell them. Like how many players there are that haven't told them, and that there was a moment last year as well. It was good, like good on you, Wellington Rugby, in one respect, but also. So the good thing was, for the first time, rather than having an old timers day, they had an alumni day. Choice, okay? So that they invited actually former Pride players to be there as well, rather than just Lions. Wow, imagine that. So they had them there, and it was cool because actually at the end of the session they had like a little presentation, and a couple of the girls that had been capped recently for Black Firms got something from there. Cool. But part of this as well is there was a moment where they recognised Jackie Patia as having played the most games for Pride, having played over 50 or something. And you know what? Jackie's played a heck of a lot of games for Pride, but can I confidently say that she's played the most? No. Because, like, Rebecca Luiana, who had to hand that over, I don't think they recorded half of her games. And other women that were in that room, I don't think they've recorded all of them. So it was a bittersweet moment for them because on the one hand, obviously, they want to give the awhi and they're like stoked to see young players coming up and being like, man, that's awesome to see them finally recognising and giving that thing. But at the same time, it's a slap in the face because their part of that moment is erased and is never acknowledged and was never recorded in the first place.
So what have the clubs done or Pride or the local clubs to mitigate this from not happening again?
Not enough. So this is part of the issue, right? Like, so some clubs are good, and the problem at the moment is it's a totally like voluntary basis as to whether people are good or not. And so certain clubs have done a great job at turning that around. And actually, Parramatta Plympton were one of the most interesting clubs in recent times to do this because everybody there is not a standard number across Wellington in terms of how many games to get a blazer, right? Some games, some clubs are like Hull Boys is 30. I think other clubs are 50, like Ori's in that. Wainui, Norths, and OBU, I think are all 100. Like that is a really long time because our seasons aren't that long. Like 100, like you don't play. That's like 10 years to get that. So. Varying thing there, but what Parramatta Plympton did a couple of years ago that was really cool was they started up a team for the first time in ages, and they were like, you know what, new team, new tradition, we can do whatever we want. And first game they gave everyone a blazer, like you're a foundation member, just recognise you. And that's the thing. Like I remember talking to Uncle Ken, during the last argument I had with Wainui Rugby, and he was talking about it's like nobody owns your history. And there is a fear and a freedom within that because the fear is that nobody does and so nobody's keeping record. But the freedom is nobody has it. So we can actually start telling that how we want and start creating our own traditions within that. So there are a couple of things that I would like to do in terms of working with local unions around like a living wage accreditation, but for clubs around, are you actually sweet for women here? Do you make women feel welcome? Do you invite them along to socials? When they come to socials, do you actually speak to them or do you just put them on a table by themselves? Do you recognise the achievements of your women? Do you put them up on the wall? Have you updated your honours board? Do you have something for them there? Basic things like that. Do you give them new jerseys when you get jerseys for the boys? Do you give them new balls?
Yeah.
Do they pay the same fees as everyone else? Because these are all questions that are no.
For sure. But have some strict criteria that they must adhere to.
Yeah.
That's right.
And also then for players. So if I'm then looking it up, I know if they've got the tick, no bullshit here.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have this argument.
It's a very good point.
Well, in this day and age,
Honestly.
Jesus.
2020.
Can you believe? And this is the thing, a couple of years ago, Wellington Rugby, because I think it must have been coming up to the 25th years of them recognising women's rugby. So they were wanting to put together some facts on different clubs. And so Mila at the Wellington Rugby had hit me up wanting some information about Wainui. I mean, I haven't been around here that long, but they just know that she's the Maori one, so get me to do stuff. So I started digging into things and finding things, and that's when I met Tiriana, who was the first captain at Wainui, and had some chats and stuff with her, and it was just so depressing, man. Like the conversations we were having with her in terms of the bullshit that they came up against, it was like we're having the same argument now. It's 25 years later, it's the same argument. Like some things have got better. Some things have, but so much hasn't changed too. And if it's poison at the bottom, you're never going to get to the next step. If you have trouble at your club and you turn up and you feel like crap, you're not going to try and push for more. And so it's going to be really hard. And if you're not getting good support and coaching at your club, how are you going to get your talent developed to then play for Pride? And then if you never get there, there's no chance that you ever getting to Black Ferns. And that's the thing that haunts me, man. It's just how much talent we're losing all the time and not giving that opportunity.
So there is a big opportunity next year with the Rugby World Cup being held here in New Zealand. Obviously, a good opportunity for New Zealand Rugby to get their act together and making sure they're recognising women's rugby across the country and for World Rugby as well.
Yeah.
So do you just want to, it's been held in New Zealand next September. Can you just give us a bit of an insight into the qualification process for the World Cup and who the teams are to watch?
Yeah,
between now and
sure.
then?
So it's a little bit, it's quite an interesting but also slightly complicated. So I'll try and explain this in the most straightforward way. Just like everything World
Like
Rugby
Super Rugby.
does, right? Yeah, it's not quite as bad as our conference system. But so essentially there were 7 teams that just got straight qualified because they were the top 7 at the last World Cup. So they're straight away in. So that's, your likes of New Zealand, Australia, USA, England, and a couple of other teams. But then what happened is to find the remaining spots, 5 remaining spots to make up whatever that is, maths 12. They've got a series of regional tournaments, so it's quite interesting. So there was a African tournament last year, and South Africa qualified through that. Kenya is going into the repechage. Then there was an Asian tournament that's going to be held, I think, next month, and that's going to be Japan, Hong Kong and Kazakhstan. Now, the comment that everyone always makes about Kazakhstan is, well, what? But they've been to more World Cups than Samoa in terms of women's World Rugby. Like, they have been a long time a part of our community. So that's the Asian tournament that's coming up. So that hasn't yet been decided. The European one is happening in September, and that's going to likely be, that is going to be Ireland, Wales, but there is going to be a third team that will be amongst that, likely Spain. So it's going to be the winner of the European Cup. Spain has won the European Cup for the last forever. Last year, only 2 women's team went unbeaten through the seasons. That was Spain and Czechia. So chances are. And then there's the 4th tournament, which should have been wrapped up by now, but was actually interrupted by measles. So that was the Pacific tournament, and it was Fiji, Samoa, Tonga, and PNG. So the Tongan team actually had to turn around because of measles. And one good thing World Rugby did was not write that off, and so has offered a chance at a second chance for them. So Fiji straight qualified for that because they beat everybody. But now at the moment they're going through a process of letting Tonga play off against PNG and against Samoa. So Tonga just played PNG over the weekend, won that game. So now if they beat Samoa, they're going to get that repechage spot. So the 5th spot is the wild card, and that's the repechage tournament. That's going to be cool, man. It's going to be like a little baby qualifier World Cup, because like I say, there's going to be an African team, a European team, an Asian team, and a Pacific team, and all going to be playing off against each other. And so that's going to be cool. All of that sounds really positive, but the sad part of that is that there was no opportunity for any American teams. So because Canada and USA straight qualified, they thought, oh yeah, that part of the world, tick. But actually there are places like Brazil that have had quite a long history in women's rugby. So it's not necessarily totally mirrors men's stuff in terms of where the strong areas are. So it's not Argentina and Latin America for women, it's Brazil. So they've had not necessarily 15s, but a strong 7s presence for a while. So a shame that they didn't get a chance to kind of push for it. But as far as things go, quite interesting. But in terms of who you're going to watch next time, it's going to be France, England, New Zealand, USA, I think, will be interesting. Canada, USA is probably more of a push than them these days. But France, I mean, they've beaten New Zealand, they've beaten England. England still, of course, is our great rival. And then New Zealand at home are going to be hard to beat. But I just, my plea is please turn up for it, because we've been incredibly bold and put us in very big stadiums, which to my mind is actually a mistake. The biggest game I went to was in France. I had the pleasure of watching France, which seems weird, actually beat the Black Ferns, but it was this amazing game. It was the first time they've ever beat New Zealand, and to see that with 18,000 French fans who were there just for women's rugby. Wow. Incredible, and they didn't want to leave after the game. And that's the biggest, French gets the biggest audiences. They've taken 6 years after the 2014 World Cup to build that audience. We have a history right now at the moment of not great audiences. This is for men's games. We don't have good audiences. And we're expecting to fill Eden Park for all of the playoffs. So you're telling me that Eden Park is going to be full for, USA v France? I hope you're right, but I can't see it. And then the rest of the games are being played at the North Shore. And so that's, I think, a capacity of 20, which maybe you could push that for our finals, but that's, it seems to me like a really missed opportunity, because particularly for what this has been, if you look at the last World Cups as they've played out, we've gone smaller to bigger to bigger to bigger in terms of audiences there. We've had full stadiums, and they're not big stadiums, but, they're 10,000, full stadium, and the atmosphere and the energy that gives it. And I'm like I have a reoccurring nightmare at the moment, which is going to be an empty stadium for a final, because if New Zealand doesn't make it, will people turn up?
Yeah.
If it's England, France, will anyone turn up apart from, you know, and also we're so far away, right? So we can't expect too many fans to travel. So it'll be probably a couple of hundred. I've played Eden Park in front of a couple of hundred. It's grim, man. It's so empty.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a marquee event that we're going to televise around the world for the state of women's rugby. I'm like anxious about it, bro.
Well, let's just hope World Rugby have their shit together. They got their marketing strategy together. Blast the billboards, do everything that they can to get it out.
I mean, look, it's not impossible. It's not impossible, but man, how long are we out now? Like, not that much. And how many people still don't know that World Cup is here next year?
Well, I didn't know a few weeks ago when I read a little wee article at the bottom of the page.
Yeah, and you're a rugby man.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing that stresses me out. The amount of my mates who play who don't know. You know? And you're
Incredible.
like, come on, guys. Like, yeah, we have to do it. Like, and this is when I, you know, talking about why am I starting to talk about this now? Oh, goodness sake, nobody else is.
No, good on you. Well, hey, thank you so much, Alice. But before we let you go, we like to do something at the end of every show with our guests. So we're going to play 9 and 10. Okay. So 9 and 10, all right. So you've got to... we're going to give you a topic, all right?
Yeah.
And you've got 10 seconds.
Now, let me get my shot.
You've got 10 seconds to name 9 answers.
Hang on, here we go.
Question that we're about to.
I'm
we've
quite
got the man.
anxious about
We've got the man himself, All Black super fan, who's actually won 9 and 10
I don't
on
know.
a TV competition and won a Freedom Furniture.
Oh, you keep saying
He's finished. He's finished.
I promised to give him a lazy boy, but it hasn't arrived yet.
Okay, 9 and 10. Clock
okay.
ready?
Ready?
Are you ready, Alice? All right.
Sure.
9 and 10. Please name 9 Black Ferns rugby players. Anytime. Go.
Okay, Ruby Tui, Sarah Hurini, Kendra Cotsage, Stacey Waka. I know so many. I can't. Jackie Partia.
Okay, time's up. We're going to go upstairs to the TMO, all right?
We'll go upstairs.
Okay, what do we got here? Okay, we got.
I got about 6.
Okay, and we've got. Oh, we've got
It's only
6.
Yeah, far out.
It's pressure, man.
But
It's those
not
pressure
easy.
moments.
It's not easy.
Nah.
But hey, thank you so much for joining us in your beautiful home.
Here in
Here in the
Wainui
kitchen.
or Mata.
sorry.
With the windows open. It's a nice, warm, balmy night here in Wainui Mata.
Shop boys.
But thanks for hosting us, and thanks heaps for providing us with insight on the women's game.
Yeah, and look, it's not all grim. I just want to tell you that. Like, there's so many things that are so positive, and the best thing is the best rugby's being played right now. The young ones that are coming through, like the talent that is there, it's massive. So, biggest players to anyone, if you've got a local club team or you see that, you know, one of the Whareparma Cup games is on, tune in, man. And you know, that was the commitment I made a couple of years ago. Is all my rugby dollars now are going towards spending and supporting, and rugby dollars in terms of my time as well. It's going towards supporting the women's game. The Hurricanes don't need my money anymore.
Yeah.
You know, Black Ferns do.
Great work. We love your work, Alice.
Shop boys.